This is Arise America.
Now, the former British socialite Ghislaine Maxwell has been sentenced to 20 years in prison for sex trafficking on behalf of her longtime partner Jeffrey Epstein. The 60-year-old had addressed the court, telling victims she hopes her conviction will bring them closure. The judge said that Maxwell caused incalculable damage to the victims of her and Epstein, and the sentence reflected the gravity of her conduct.
It's been an incredibly long journey for me. As you guys know, I came forward in 2016. This has been an incredibly complicated case, incredibly traumatic for the victims, the survivors, and today is a day I didn't think would ever happen. So for me, it's a blessing, it really is, and I've prayed for this woman so hard and so long, and God's food our praise.
Well, Arise international correspondent Faith Orr joins us now from New York. Faith, you've been following developments. The sentence of 20 years has now been handed down. What was the reaction in court?
Heard from the prosecutor after this sentence, and the prosecution says that this indicates that no one is above the law. Even someone of Ghislaine Maxwell's power and standing is not above the law. So that is something that they're happy about, even though the sentence was less than they had asked for. They'd asked for between 30 and 55 years. The judge did hand out 20 years. That means that given she could have good behaviour, and if time that Ghislaine Maxwell has already served is taken into account, she could be released when she's in her late 70s. Now, some of the victims had said they wanted to see her spend the rest of her life behind bars, but it does seem that the prosecution is happy with the decision the judge has made today.
Maxwell didn't speak during the trial, but in an unexpected move this afternoon, she did address the survivors.
She did, so she spoke after them. And she said she hoped that her conviction would bring them some sort of closure, and that in her words, harsh incarceration would bring them pleasure. So with those sorts of words, it does seem like she still isn't really accepting that this is something that she deserves, describing her punishment as harsh. Her solicitors have asked that she be placed in a women's facility and that she be enrolled on courses to try and, some sort of therapy courses for people who have suffered trauma, because, they say that she is a victim as well of Epstein. But the judge stressed that Maxwell was not being punished instead of Epstein, but that her actions were heinous and her crimes were very, very severe.
Tell us a bit about Ghislaine Maxwell, because she's described as a British socialite, but has had a very fortunate upbringing, a famous family.
Yes, she did. Her father was Robert Maxwell, who was the disgraced media mogul. Now, he actually he died on suspicious circumstances. Some people say that he was killed, committed suicide. We know that he disappeared from his yacht, which was actually called the Lady Ghislaine. And shortly after that happened, she met Epstein. So her siblings submitted a document to the court saying that she was at a very vulnerable time in her life when she met Epstein. Now, they also said this was right back to her childhood. Just days before she was born, her eldest brother was in a car crash which left him in a coma. And for the first few years of her life, her siblings say her parents simply didn't pay any attention to her, to the point that when she was 3 years old, she stood in front of her mother and said, "Mummy, I exist." They then proceeded to shower her with love and affection, but in a sort of a twisted way, the siblings say, the way that her father was quite controlling, quite a brutish man. So they say that this all set her up to fall into the sort of trap that someone like Epstein would set. But the victims say that if it wasn't for her, Epstein wouldn't have been able to commit any of the crimes that he did. There's no doubt that he was a paedophile, that he was the problem, but she facilitated it. In some cases, the victim said that they tried to jump off a cliff to escape Epstein's island. and that, you know, Maxwell was the one that recruited them. She was the one that made them feel comfortable. In one case, Virginia Giuffre said that she actually taught her how to perform a sexual massage on Epstein. So no doubt at all from the victims that Maxwell was an integral part of his crimes.
Well, Faith, we'll have to leave it there, but thank you very much indeed for your analysis this evening. Faith Orr, Arise international correspondent from New York.
This is Arise America.